All right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. My name is Rami Nashashibi. I serve as the founding executive director of the Inner City Muslim Action Network, and we are very honored and privileged to gather here this morning and have you all here. I want to thank all the extraordinary community groups, my staff, our board members, people that have been connected to this work for many, many decades here, 3 decades that Iman has been doing this work, along with faith leaders and community leaders from not just this neighborhood, but across the city that have been extraordinary partners with us. I want to begin by saying, look, we are gathering in this moment above and beyond everything else to acknowledge that we are entering into a sacred season of Ramadan, soon after that Lent, not long after that Passover and Easter. And for all of our faithful communities that have been tapping into the ancestral spiritual lessons of that moment, know that this sacred season for our communities may be unlike any other season that we've had perhaps in our lifetime. A season that's going to be calling on us to live out the principles that are embedded in our faith that have stood the test of time, these universal transcendent values of goodness, of compassion, of mercy, of justice, of courage, of conviction. Principles and values that you don't need a priest, rabbi, imam, guru, sage to tell you are right. They just resonate with basic notions of what it means to be a good human being. It is certainly what this organization has committed itself to for the last 30 years, as we do every single day in running the federally qualified health center here, in running programs like Green Reentry, working with returning residents and justice-involved young people, providing pathways for employment and housing and a life of a trajectory of thriving possibilities. What we do through our arts and culture program, what we do in the heart of Inglewood by running a fresh market that is an alternative to so much of the food deserts and lack of access food, community run with community values, thriving jobs, extraordinary offerings to demonstrate that our communities do deserve, want, and should always get better. It's what Iman has done, standing shoulder to shoulder with our partners in the Jewish Council of Urban Affairs or the Southwest Organizing Project, who's here and represented today, both of whom are here today. It's what we've done with partners and organizers like our, that you'll hear from in a moment, to advocate for criminal justice reform, to advocate for immigration reform, to advocate for common sense laws in the state of Illinois and across the country that speak to the dignity of all of our people. It's what led us in 2016 to commemorate the legacy of Martin Luther King in this neighborhood 5 blocks away from us, who in 1966, over close to 60 years ago, marched with people like Rabbi Robert Marks, with people like Reverend Jesse Jackson, like Reverend William Barrows, and so many others who in that time were confronting the legacy of evil in our neighborhood. The evil that kept black families from owning homes simply because they were told they were perceived and presented as threats in the neighborhood. That day on August 5th, 1966, when King marched here 5 blocks away with 700 brave others and confronted an angry mob of 5,000 people, residents that were whipped up into a frenzy to throw rocks and bottles and nasty epithets, King was once asked, immediately after the march, after being hit by a brick, nursing a wound with blood drizzling down his forehead, if he regretted what he did that day. And he looked with unwavering commitment into the cameras and said, not at all. We had to bring the evil out into the light of day so that that evil can be confronted. The evil of cruelty, the evil of bigotry. Today, that evil is again out, unapologetically in the open. It's not hiding behind masks. It's not hiding behind vicious signs or rocks or bottles. It's in some of the most powerful halls of government across the country and certainly in the capital. And we know that our communities are under siege and feel the anxiety of being under siege by that evil. And now more than ever, with Ramadan upon us, with Lent and Easter and Passover upon us, an organization like Iman will do what it's done for 3 decades and call upon each of us to lean into our faith values and commitments, to stand against that evil, and to stand for what is good, righteous, and holy. And so with that, I'm so profoundly grateful to have with us today our extraordinary group of political representation and organizers and faith leaders. And with that, our first leader I want to bring to the table, to the podium here, is someone who has been working in the legacy of King, Marx, and so many others for so many decades. She has been working with us since our inception here at Iman to continue to do the amazing work that we try to do every single day. And she has been, in many ways, a paragon of all the values that we continue to fight for. Please welcome President Toni Preckwinkle.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Today, we come together to demonstrate our support in the face of hateful and dehumanizing rhetoric and a nationwide increase in hate crimes. We're proud to stand by Iman and support the vital work they do in our community. And I want to thank the faith and community leaders who are present today for this powerful demonstration of solidarity. Iman is an anchor on the south side of Chicago. It meets the needs of the community, focusing on critical issues like housing and behavioral health and food deserts. Cook County is proud to support its impactful programming. Iman is a grant recipient of the Cook County Gun Violence Prevention and Reduction Program. Our Justice Advisory Council, which manages these grants, shared some of their recent accomplishments with me. Iman's Green Entry program provides transitional housing, life skills education, and hands-on construction training for returning residents and at-risk youth. Recently, 40 graduates completed the program, all earning multiple construction certifications. Over 300 people applied for the next cohort. Programs like this one, evidence-informed and responsive to community needs, are making a real difference. We're seeing gradual reductions in the rates of community violence. That's why we'll continue investing in the critical work building safe and resilient communities. In contrast, at the national level, we see President Trump and Elon Musk making divisive statements that target vulnerable communities and exploit prejudice and ignorance for political gain. This rhetoric is designed to sow uncertainty and mistrust. We won't stand by as our communities are targeted by fearmongers and bullies. We're strong because we stand together. And our strength is rooted in a steadfast commitment to justice, inclusion, and compassion. In Cook County, we do not condemn our neighbors because they look different from us or worship in religious institutions that are different from our own. We look after each other and proudly stand together. We embrace and celebrate our diversity. In 2022, we launched Cook County United Against Hate and Violence, a campaign in coordination with Cook County Commissioner Scott Britton. We did so to affirm our commitment to dismantling systems that breed intolerance and injustice. That's why we'll continue to draw inspiration from the wonderful people leading Iman. We'll continue to care for and support each other. And our diverse communities will be gathering to celebrate Ramadan, Lent, and Passover. I proudly affirm that Cook County remains committed to caring for the safety and well-being of all of our residents. Thank you. And now I'd like to bring to the podium Alma Anaya, Commissioner of the Board of Commissioners of Cook County. She is Chair of the Finance Committee for our Forest Preserves and Vice Chair of the Hospital Committee for the Cook County Board. Commissioner Anaya.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is always quite sobering starting off a morning with dealing with so much potential stress and pressure, but realizing that you're surrounded by individuals that really care about one another. And I think that's what we are standing here united to celebrate, is that unity, that impact that collectively we're reaffirming, that we're recommitting to. And I thank each and every one of you for taking the time to make that statement here this morning and for us to show that solidarity. My name is Alma Naya. I'm the Cook County Commissioner of the 7th District. I represent the southwest side of the city of Chicago, communities that unfortunately, like many of the other communities here in Cook County, have seen the pressure and the devastation and the attacks on one another, on our humanity, just our basic existence. And, you know, with that, I think, again, I appreciate the partnership, and I think for Iman to be putting this together, I want to just kind of give them their flowers, and for being so proactive about it, and for standing united in this very, very special time in which a lot of our beliefs and faith kind of coincide and are reflective times. And Iman has always done that. I've, you know, been invited to a lot of their iftars, and like really, again, have been able to settle and really feel at home. But I want to specifically mention it because I think community really matters in times like this. And the fact that Iman has, for 30 plus years at this point, has actively ensured that community is created is important. In some of the most devastating times, I have seen one another and stand up in this moment. And I can recall, you know, I've been working at the county for about a little short of 14 years. And I have always seen that the southwest side is taken care of very well by organizations like Iman, and the organizations, I know SWAP is in the house as well, and others who have actively stood together in the front lines of the first administration from 2016 to 2020, I guess 2017 to 2021, and then COVID, when our communities left and right were seeing that our community members were passing away or are devastated by losing jobs, etc. And now in this time when we're seeing continuous attacks on our communities, and like Madam President just mentioned, the county has taken many steps in ensuring that we collectively stand and that we dismantle a lot of the attacks, whether they're just through verbal attacks or whether it's through systematic attacks that have existed and that are being tried to even erase the advances that we've been able to accomplish in decades. And what we do here today is, it's so important. It's easy to be cowardly in the way that others act, but it's so difficult to be brave in this time and to stand up and to be, to really tap into our common energy, to stand up and to protect one another. So I thank you for doing that, and for collectively today and in the next, days and weeks and years to stand up for one another. And I stand committed to pushing forward with that, and thank you for your commitment as well.
Thank you, President Preckwinkle and Commissioner Anna. I'm going to ask in this moment, we are joined by some, as I opened up about this sacred season. Of course, we are upon Ramadan, and the next few days will start for the larger Muslim community, not only here in Chicago, but across the country and the globe. And as we have done here at Iman for many years, we have celebrated our faith practices with all of our community, because Iman is an organization with people of many backgrounds and many Interfaith, and we're grateful to be in a community that has active churches and synagogues that have stood with one another, not only in this neighborhood, but across the Chicagoland area. So I'd like to bring a couple of our faith leaders to hear from them in this moment, specifically because of what's at stake. So if I don't mind, if I could start with Rabbi Lizzie, please, if you don't mind, come on up, and Rabbi Andrea London.
Thank you, Rami, President Preckwinkle, and everyone who's here this morning. Really just to do exactly what you said. I know, hi, my name is Rabbi Lizzie Heidemann. You want to say who you are?
You speak.
All right. Passover's coming up in just over a month, and the narrative of the story begins with a Pharaoh who begins with inciting language. Just words, you know, but words that spur a kind of suspicion and fear about the most vulnerable people in the story, and their threat to the most powerful people in the story. And the story begins with words and ends with violence. And I think that's precisely what's happening right now. And the story of Passover is a story of liberation, not just, you know, for the Israelite people, but for the Erev Rav, the Torah says, a mixed multitude that went out together, who would not stand either for inciting rhetoric or for violence being perpetrated against them or any of the people who were suffering from it. And they went out as a group of diverse people, as a group who said we could envision a different future, and it's hard, but we will walk there together. We will navigate our differences. We will stand together and reject calls to incitement or disinformation, misinformation, and all of the ways that the power structures are trying to discredit and create suspicion and fear among the places actually doing good work for some of the most vulnerable people. We have always stood with people who are trying to create human dignity, whether for housing or health services or jobs, or all of the ways that men and so many of the organizations right now whose integrity are being called into question. We will always stand with their work, their holy work of trying to uplift the dignity and standard of living and freedom for all people, from the most vulnerable to the most powerful, creating a beautiful society that includes every single one of us. That's our prayer as we go into this season.
Thank you so much.
It's an honor to stand here together with such distinguished leaders in our community, both in the religious community and the political community, and of course with Rami Nashashibi and Iman. My name is Rabbi Andrea London. I'm the rabbi of Beth Emet Synagogue in Evanston, Illinois, where I've been for 25 years and working with Iman for the last 25 years. And I have had the pleasure and honor to watch this amazing organization grow in this time and provide amazing services to this community here and throughout the Chicago area. And so to stand here at this time in which an organization that has provided so much good to the community is under threat is something that threatens each and every one of us who believes in the cause of dignity and righteousness and justice and peace and equality for all. And that's not what we are seeing in our federal government. And thank God that we have leaders in our community who do believe in that and that are going to fight against that, and so we need to stand together. One of the things that we learn in our Passover story is that God saw the suffering, but until the people called out and screamed out to God and said, we are suffering, God didn't really see that they were ready to leave Egypt, that they needed to see what was going on and they needed to call it out. And that's what we're doing at this time, that we can't sit idly by. We have to call out, we have to scream. And as Rabbi Lizzie said, we have to hold hands and hearts together in order to move forward. Rabbi Marks, who Rami spoke about earlier, was my childhood rabbi. And so I was very inspired by his example from when I was younger. And the fact that he said in 2016 during the Housing Rights March with Dr. King that we can't sit idly by, that we have to put our voices in there, that we have to put our bodies on the line, that we need to do that which is right and that which is just. And I always admired that about about Rabbi Marx. And so here we are now standing here together at this time, almost 60 years later, and we have to say, what does it mean? As King also said on that day, when people asked him about that march, he said, this is the first step in a 1,000-mile journey, and we feel like we had made many more steps since then. Certainly we had not reached our destination, and now I think that we're seeing so much being rolled back, and sometimes we feel like we're at the starting line again. And so what does it mean for us now to continue to march together and to not allow the powers that be to separate and divide, and that greed and that hate will see that Jews and Christians and Muslims and black and white and people of every gender, that we need to work together, that the powers that be want to separate us, want to cause division, and that we understand that our faiths are intertwined, that that's what also Rabbi Lizzie is talking about, the Erev Rav, that together is the only way we can move forward. And so we stand with Iman, and we stand together, and we commit ourselves in this challenging time in our history to continue that 1,000-mile journey until freedom and dignity is reached for everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I will also, at this point, ask if we can have Reverend Sierra, Pastor Sierra, and Reverend Thurston also come and share just a couple of comments, and we will then ask our Deputy Executive Director, our Director, Chief Executive Director, Alia Bilal, to share a couple of comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Reverend Sierra Banks Chamberlain, the Executive Director of Live Free Illinois. I give honor to President Preckwinkle. I give honor to my pastor, Pastor Glover, and to Rami. I'll be very brief. This does not make any sense. And I'm standing here because I don't know Rami from seeing him on the news. I don't know him because I've seen some really wonderful report. I know him because I've been on the ground with Rami. I know him because I know his workers, and I know the effort that they put into making sure that our communities are safe, that our communities are thriving. So when I see that there is an attack on my brother, I come to stand here today and say, not on our watch. And we know what's happening in this country. We know that our communities, our black communities, our brown communities, our poor communities, we know that if you are not an able-bodied white man in this country, that we are under attack. So in a season where there is supposed to be unity as we enter into this holy season, let us remember that we are not only called to pray, but in my tradition, we are called to flip over tables. So I invoke you all to say, as we stand behind Rami, we are not only going to be, whether you are Jewish, whether you are Muslim, or whether you are Christian, I invite you to be table flippers and say that we are no longer going to allow, well, we are not going to allow this administration to target our brothers, our sisters, our communities, our organizations. We are going to fight back, and I am here today to stand in solidarity with this community to say that we are table flippers and not on our watch.
I'm Stephen Thurston II, pastor of New Covenant Baptist Church on the South Side. My sacred text tells me that there was a conversation had between a lawyer and Jesus. And that lawyer asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And then the second commandment is equally as important, to love your neighbor as yourself. This is my neighbor. And if I don't love my neighbor, the real question is, am I being neighborly? We've gathered in this place today because we're being neighborly. We see our brother that's in need, and we're going to flip some tables and raise some hell and push back and fight for what's right, for what's just. We love you. We support you. If you go down, we go down. We all in this together. Don't forget the blackout. We shutting down through economic power. Dr. King wasn't killed because he was just, this radical guy. He came for the pockets and the paper. And we coming for pockets and paper. And so we shutting down to let them know our strength and our power, that our dollars matter, our voice matters. And if you mess with us, we're going to mess back with you.
Thank you. And in a minute, I'm going to ask, and we're going to give those who are gathered an opportunity for a couple questions, but I'm also going to ask those who are gathered here, including our board co-chair and some of our staff and some of the leaders from organizations like SWAP, for all of us to really stand behind together for one photo before we leave out this morning. We'll close with a small prayer. But before that, I'd like to bring, I mentioned her before, our Chief Executive Director, Ali Bilal, to the podium.
Most gracious, most merciful. Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings be upon you all. My name again is Ali Bilal. It is really an honor to be in conversation this morning, in spiritual conversation with so many people. It is an honor to be in relationship with the kinds of people that are in this room, representative of the types of power that we have built as a community in this room. Just yesterday, I got back late last night from a trip to our site in Atlanta. Some of you are aware that we have a location in Atlanta, Iman, Atlanta. And on the way to the airport, I was in the lift with a Congolese gentleman. And he told me that he was the leader of a Congolese advocacy group there in Atlanta. And he asked me, he said, I see that logo, that Iman, I know that, I've heard of that organization before. And he said, do you all do relief for migrants in the city of Atlanta? And I said, yes, we do. And he said, have you guys had to shut your doors in Atlanta because of the migrant work? Because so many of the organizations that are doing migrant advocacy and support work in Atlanta have been shut down just in the last few weeks. And I said, no, we haven't, not yet. And he said, how are you doing that? How are you keeping it all together? How are you doing the work that you're doing without the support that so many of the organizations have had? And I had to answer him honestly. I answered him honestly. I said, by a thread. By a thread. And I think that for me, in this moment, that is something that is becoming profoundly apparent to me. That our work is built on such a strong foundation, such a strong legacy of work that people have been putting in for generations and for generations and for decades and for decades. Work that people like my ancestors did building this country on their backs. Work that so many of our communities have done for centuries in this place and for decades in this place. And yet, at times, all of that can be held on by a thread. And so my call, my plea to all of our communities, to the organizations, to the philanthropies, to the corporations that have said for many years that this work is important, that have pledged for many years their support for work like this, that this is not the time to back down, that this is not the time to let fear rule us, to make fear guide our decisions. This is not the time to cower. It is certainly not the time to go back on commitments that were made in good faith. Right now, the Muslim community in this country is gearing up for what so many of us know as a spiritual moment, as a profound opportunity for reconnection with the divine and with creation. And for organizations that are across the American Muslim spectrum that are doing work like this all over the country, it's also a time of fundraising. And there are a lot of organizations in the American Muslim community right now that are feeling the strain, on people's pocketbooks, and that are wondering if they're going to be able to make their goals, if they're going to be able to continue providing health care, if they're going to be able to continue providing housing for vulnerable communities. And this, I plead, is not the time for us to question that. It's not the time for us to back down. This year, Iman is launching its most ambitious Ramadan drive in our 30-year history, $2 million. And that's ambitious, and yet it barely scratches the surface. It barely scratches the surface. And there are organizations across the country who are doing the same. And so my plea is that organizations, is that individuals, is that families, is that foundations, is that corporations not only use this as an opportunity to stand up and let us know that they support us with their words. That is important too, as we've heard. The words are important, but they need to come quickly followed by action. This is the time to double down, to triple down. This is the time to make sure that our communities know that we are committed to them in words and actions. And I pray that that is something that we can continue to show up for our communities around, both the physical support and the financial investment into neighborhoods like this, both in Chicago and Atlanta and beyond. And so we're gonna be right there on the streets, participating in the blackout tomorrow, which means we're not gonna be giving our money to the big corporations, but we are going to be supporting efforts like the Go Green Community Fresh Market on 63rd and Racine. Yes. We are going to be doing that. And we're going to make sure that our communities are coming together at this spiritual time for spiritual solace, but also for action. We're going to be calling on people in this room and people outside this room to join us on a day like Wednesday, March 19th, where we're going to be going down to Springfield, and we're going to be advocating for something called the Clean Slate Act to get automatic expungement for folks that are coming out of prisons. Our spiritual traditions call us to pray, but they also call us to act. And that is what we have to do in this moment. I pray and I hope that this community will continue to act together. I pray that we will continue to be able to stand up to our commitments to this community together. And y'all know a no tweet from no person gonna stop that for any of us. Woo! Peace and blessings.
All right, and I want to acknowledge as we close out, and we'll give a couple of opportunities for questions, and I'm going to ask organizations like the Inglewood Arts Collective that's here, like SWAP that's here, like some of our staff and board chair and this Council of Islamic Organizations, right before we close, in the spirit of the unity that we're talking about, the spiritual unity, to come behind us, and all let's take one moment where we can stand together and close in prayer. We'll take a picture of that. But before I do that, you heard Alia, you heard about the flipping the tables. Rabbi Landon knows this, and our dear beloved brother Reverend Thurston knows. We're not sitting around. We're not a community that is a woe is us community. We don't believe in that fabric. We will continue to struggle. I am the grandson of a Palestinian refugee that was born in struggle, that was born in flight, that came to Inglewood many years ago. That, in many ways, all we have ever known is struggle. So we come from an extraordinary people, all of us. Ancestrally, we have people that know how to struggle, know how to light the light in the face of darkness, know how to show human kindness in the face of cruelty, and know how to lean into love, faith, and compassion in the face of absolute hatred. And so that's what we will continue to do with one another. But for this moment, I'm going to go ahead and give any reporters and media, if there's any thought or question before we call everyone up. Is there anyone here? All right. Good. I think you got what you needed to get. And so with that, though, I would like, first and foremost, the people on the ground here at Iman that make it happen every single day in our fresh market, in Green Reentry, in the health center, are the extraordinary leaders in facilities like this one. You're sitting in a 16th Ward polling center. This is a place where we've had mayoral conversations and debates. We've closed down the streets. We've had Ramadan community iftars. We've brought communities together in a space like this, and it can't happen without an extraordinary staff. So can you give it up for the staff of Iman that are here? And could I ask my staff, Dr. Brittany, Jose, everyone, so would you come stand behind us right now? Come on up. Amina, Shannon, come on. Alia, why don't you stand? And as we said, I want to acknowledge the leaders, the faith leaders that had came out this morning, including Pastor Glover, Pastor Brett, Reverend Titus. Can you also come behind us? Could I ask that all of our leaders here we could all stand together? Could I ask that Abdullah Mitchell from the Council of Islamic Organizations that came out here, my board co-chair, Clyde El-Amin, the dope, the freshest, the flyest, you know who you are, this is the freshest couple, not only in Chicago on the south side, but maybe in the nation. Give it up for the Inglewood Arts Collective. Come on. We're going to come up here. And we have been in partnership with this organization for over 30 years doing this work. Can I ask my SWAP family to please come up here? Thank you, Chris. Drea. Go ahead, Jake. Come on up. We're going to come up. let's try to get in close. Can we all try to get in close? And so that you get a small picture. I know they can try to get a picture and get in, kind of hover in here.